I don't know if you guys heard this come out from Arnold Schwarzenegger or not, but really shocked me actually, and it kind of drove me a little bit crazy when he was talking here. So I'm going to have to go over this, kind of step by step. So here it goes. Here's Arnold Schwarzenegger on his rampage that made no sense. So here we go.
Not two sides to bigotry, and there are not two sides to hatred. And if you choose to march with a flag that symbolizes the slaughter of millions of people, there are not two sides to that.
Alright, I kind of get what he's saying, but, President Trump was not talking about, in his speech to the people about Charlottesville, he was not talking about that there's two sides to hatred or bigotry or anything like that. He was saying that there was two sides, there's two people at fault, two groups at fault, even though one group had the right to be there and the other group did not. They had a permit, the one group had a permit, and the other group came in and started trouble. So, I don't know what he's talking about this, but he's turning this around and people are not being able to focus on what is really the issue here. So, let's continue.
The only way to beat the loud and angry voices of hate is to meet them with louder and more reasonable voices.
Okay. He's basically telling people to go in and shut down the other people, and that's what they tried to do, and it caused a bunch of problems. So, I mean, obviously the thing in Charlottesville was a major catastrophe for both sides, and President Trump was saying that both sides were at fault, both sides had the problem, and he's sitting here saying this is what you should do. You should go out there and argue with them right in their own turf, basically. No. It just causes problems. We have free speech in this country for a reason. And that means everybody has the right to free speech. You can't give free speech to one group without giving it to the other as well. So whether you agree with one side or the other doesn't really matter. They have the right to go out there, assemble, and have their free speech as well. It doesn't matter what you agree with or not. So let's continue.
And that includes you, President Trump. In fact, as president of this great country, you have a moral responsibility.
Now, that's interesting that he should say that because, number one, Mr. Schwarzenegger, you have absolutely no grounds to stand on when it comes to morality. And number two, what in the world are you doing trying to tell President Trump about what he needs to do or what he should do when you couldn't even do that when the people were screaming at you here in California? He's got a big mouth.
To send an unequivocal message that you won't stand for hate and racism. Now let me help you write your speech here a little bit.
Oh, wow. Now he's offering him help. Seriously? You can't even oh my God. You can't run California. You can't even run a TV show, let alone give the President of the United States advice. Stop it.
As President of the United States and as a Republican, I reject the support of white supremacists. The country that defeated Hitler's armies is no place for Nazi flags. The party of Lincoln won't stand with those who carry the battle flag of the failed Confederacy.
First of all, we better get our history straight here. That wasn't the battle flag of a failed Confederacy. That was a flag that was popping up here and there throughout the Confederacy, throughout the Civil War. The Civil War was not fought under the basis of bigotry and hatred. The Civil War was fought over taxes and oppression. When the Union was oppressing onto the southern states, the southern states stood up and said, we're not going to take it. And they fought for what they believed in. This was not over slavery. This was not over anything else. So we have to get our history straight here. The Civil War was fought over basically oppression up from the Union. The only reason that Lincoln freed the slaves was so that he could win the war, because he was losing the war and he needed to win the war. He had to win the war. For political reasons, number one, and because he truly believed that the Union should be the top dog in the country. So, before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, this was not the battle flag of a failed Confederacy. That flag was not being flown here. A Nazi flag was not being flown here. They weren't even heard of then, at that point in history. And you're talking about a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with what you're trying to talk about. You're actually taking the focus off of what is real and what is true and putting it onto something that is completely false and wrong. Mr. Schwarzenegger, get your history straight. Don't sit here and preach to people and try to tell people what it is when it isn't. Let's move on.
Was that very difficult? You see, I told you.
Wow. Really? Enough said.
I have a message to the neo-Nazis and to the white nationalists and to the neo-Confederates. Let me be just as blunt as possible. Your heroes are losers. You're supporting a lost cause. And believe me, I know the original Nazis. I was born in Austria in 1947.
What? He knew the original Nazis? What? He said he was born in Austria in 1947, right there on the screen. That was after World War II, number one. So he was an infant after the war. And how long does it take to actually understand when you're a kid to understand what's going on in the world? I would say 12 to 15 years old, somewhere in there. Really? You knew the original Nazis? Okay. Sounds like he's talking himself up, people.
Shortly after the Second World War. And growing up, I was surrounded by broken men. Men who came home from the war filled with shrapnels and guilt.
I don't even know what to say here. He knew all these people after he was born? What is he endowed with some... Mr. Schwarzenegger, are you endowed with some godly power? Okay.
Men who were misled into a losing ideology. And I can tell you that this ghosts that you idolize spent the rest of their lives living in shame. And right now, they're resting in hell.
Okay, yeah, I guess he has a god complex. Really? Now you're judge, jury, and executioner. I think you're kind of bringing your movies into reality and they don't mix. It's completely wrong there, Mr. Schwarzenegger. You really need to rethink what you're saying.
Hell, I know that you weren't born with this hateful view.
Now, he totally knows, he definitely has a god complex here, guys. I mean, I completely agree with the neo-Nazis and all that stuff, that their ideology is not correct. I agree with that. That's the only thing I can agree with him on this thing so far. Right now, he's talking himself up and he's making himself look good, and he's completely redirecting what's going on with what's happening in the world. And history is not being told correctly. So, people, do your research. Don't just listen to a celebrity. Wow, this is crazy.
No one is. But the truth is, it's never too late to make the choices, to learn and to evolve, and to understand that all human beings have equal value.
Holy cow, something we agree on. Ha! Alright, that's cool. Here's the problem, though. When he says that they have this ideology and they have this thing, they still have their freedom of choice and their freedom of speech. You cannot get rid of this. If you get rid of it for one side, you have to get rid of it for the other side as well. And you can't get rid of that. If you get rid of that, then we're no longer a free society. You guys want them to shut up and stay quiet, but you can't have that unless you shut up and stay quiet. So think about that for a second.
If you say, Arnold, hey, I was just at the march, don't call me a Nazi, I have nothing to do with Nazis at all. Let me help you. Don't hang around people who carry Nazi flags, give Nazi salutes, or shout Nazi slogans. Go home. Or better yet, tell them that they're wrong to celebrate an ideology that murdered millions of people.
Hey, that's true. They did. And yeah, it is an ideology that we shouldn't support. It is hatred. It is that kind of stuff. But there are people that still support it. And they have the right to do that, whether you think it's wrong or not. I don't agree with them, but in reality, it's out there. And they have that right. This is America. Whether we like it or not, they have that right. You can't tell them not to, because they're still going to, because they have that right. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our Founding Fathers, things like that. This all makes America great, whether it's good or bad, in your thought process.
And then go home. You're so lucky to live in a country that gives you every right to say horrible things. But
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. He just was saying that whole time before that they shouldn't be saying it. Now he's saying that they have the right to. Oh, great, perfect. Thank you for at least acknowledging that we have a First Amendment here in our Constitution that allows us that. What gives you the right to tell everybody, Mr. Schwarzenegger, what gives you the right to tell them that they can't talk like this, or to have other people go out there and talk over them when it's not a legal protest? You're basically telling people to protest the protesters that have a permit when they don't have a permit. That's breaking the law. You can't do that.
But think about how you could actually use that power for something good. Those of you who have been
Yes, within the confines of the law.
silent, you must also evolve. I have learned a long time ago that the only way we can really eliminate hatred is to face it head on.
This, of course, coming from the guy who can't face anything head on in reality. When he was running California as the governor, he couldn't face a single topic that would and face it head on and conquer it. He just couldn't do it because everybody was against him, so he caved. Oh my God, I don't know how many times he did that. And California is worse off because of it.
It is not always comfortable, of course, but stereotypes about racism, religion, gender, anything else, they're like cancer. If you had a tumor, you wouldn't quietly hope that it slowly disappears. You would zap the shit out of it with all the chemotherapy and cut it out and try every experimental treatment until it was gone. But this is no different. I mean,
Whoa, whoa, hold on here. He just sat here and told everybody that they need to create a violent situation in order to get rid of this kind of talk. We have the right to this kind of, he just said we have the right to this kind of talk. We have the freedom of speech here. And now he's turning around and telling people to get violent about it? What are you, Mr. Schwarzenegger, inciting a riot? Are you trying to say we need to go to civil war again? What the heck is going on with you? Where is your head on this? Really? People, think about what he's saying. That is terrible to tell people. It's like a cancer? Wow. Cut it out? Zap the shit out of it? You can't do that. You have to sit and think about the morality and the confines of the law that all this is incorporated in. We have these laws for a reason, to keep us free, to keep us America. Oh man, Mr. Schwarzenegger, pull your head out, please. This is ridiculous.
and this is a difficult time for our country, of course. But I know that if we all have the courage to do something about it, and to do the right thing, we come out stronger in the end. I've already donated some money to the Simon Wiesenthal Center, named after a great Nazi hunter, who I was lucky to call a friend. And I hope that you will join me by supporting your favorite anti-hate organization.
Support your anti-hate organization is fine, but make sure it's within the confines of the law that it all comes out. Do not sit there, do not go out and incite riots, do not go out and incite civil war or whatever the case may be. Here we go.
Let's all commit right now to leaving the terrible ghosts of the past in the trash heap of history.
Okay, this statement right here says a whole lot, because this is on both sides. And this is exactly what President Trump was talking about. The terrible ghosts that need to be left in the trash heap of history, terrible ghosts of the past, encompass the entire problem here, because these people are saying that these statues are actually a symbol of slavery, and they need to be taken down. And that's how they feel about it. Well, what about the people who feel that these are great people, whether or not they were in the Civil War? Because, where does this end? Again, we're already in the realm of these people are asking for Thomas Jefferson, Washington Monument, all these monuments to be taken down because they had slaves. This was a different time. Let's leave these ghosts in the past as well. Let's look at the men. Let's look at what they did for us. They created this country for us. They wrote the Constitution. They wrote the Bill of Rights. Anything and everything that is America, slavery was a part of that. So let's just leave the slavery part out of it. Let's just move on and look at what they accomplished rather than that one single thing in their life, which was the norm back then. It was a normal thing. It was just common throughout the world, not just America. So let's get that straight too. This was all throughout the world. Heck, the tribes in Africa had slaves. The American Native Indians had slaves. It was very common. So what? We're gonna just let's get rid of the Native American Indians too. Let's not just blame white people here, because it was everybody that did this. Get your history straight, people, because there's a lot in there, and there's a lot of it. You got to really step back and look at it before you start saying, "Hey, people like this are right," because they're Mr. Schwarzenegger. You're not. You better have another speech here. This is ridiculous.
That's where they belong. Now share this video if you think that hatred has no place in America. Let's terminate hate.
Of course, he's making a reference to his own movie, because that's pretty much all you got, Mr. Schwarzenegger. I'm sorry, but this is the wrong kind of speech to come from celebrities. Celebrities better stand up and have their history books and stuff all lined out and say the right things and teach the right message to people, because this is ridiculous. I'm tired of seeing this happen. The straw that broke the camel's back. These people are breaking, the other side is breaking the law by pulling down the statues on their own and stomping on them and going through this whole process. This is ridiculous. This needs to stop. And whether or not you feel that those statues are that way or not, it doesn't make a difference, because everybody else has some other thought. There's other people out there that have thoughts as well. Your rights are no more, your freedom of speech is no more important than my freedom of speech, and vice versa. Your ideologies are no more different than my ideologies. And everybody else out there, everybody has their own thoughts and their own freedoms and their own thing in America. Within the confines of the law, within the confines of morality, which is what our law is based on, stop and think about what you're saying, what you're doing, and where you're going with this. Because this is not the way we need to go. Look, I'm done with my rant. Mr. Schwarzenegger, you really need to stop and think about what you're doing and what you're saying to people, because all you're doing is inciting riots, and that's all I'm going to say at this point. So, that's my views. Leave a comment if you'd like, and we'll go from there. Have a good one, guys.